Good morning.
Hello.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Uh, I'm gonna exit and come back.
Hello.
Hi. Good
Hi.
morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
And, Brad just joined and then he couldn't hear us. Or yeah, he couldn't hear us, so he's rejoining. And usually people kind of trickle on here from about 12 to 12:10. So
All right.
hi, Syed.
Hey, Brandy.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
This is Mina. Hello. Unfortunately, Jade's not going to be able to join us. She had a family emergency, so it'll just be the three of us today.
Okay. It's all on our shoulders.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys can handle it. Hi, Stacy.
Hey there.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining. I'm waiting on Brad because I know he's coming, so we'll see if we can get him connected. I should share my screen if I'm not already. Share. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, beautiful. How was everybody's weekend?
It's good. It was fun. My son was at the state mountain biking championships here in Colorado, so that was pretty cool.
How do you do?
He did well. It's his first year racing as a freshman, and he climbed 6 positions during the championship. So that's good. He's nowhere near first, but he's got 4 more years, 3 more years to get up to first if he wants to do that. So yeah, it was fun, and I did the cooking. So I was cooking food for 50 people, breakfast and lunch.
Wow.
It's cool. I like running the grill.
You would not want me running the grill. Everybody's food is different.
We didn't have beer there, but if I can have a beer in one hand and a spatula in the other, I'm happy.
We all can't be high achievers at everything.
It's one of the few that I can do. Outside of the grill, it's chocolate chip cookies or brownies, and that's about it. Or pancakes. I've got a sweet tooth, I guess.
What about you, Syed? What'd you do?
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. Saturday, we went to a wedding, like a very old friend that we went through high school and college together. And then Sunday, a bunch of housework, putting up lights across on the fences and everything. And then it was super windy here. And we got that 12-foot skeleton for Halloween up front.
Yeah.
And that thing fell
Okay.
over. And it's supposed to be super secure into the ground, but it fell over into our front yard. So to pick that up, get sandbags from Home Depot. So it was a whole thing. Yeah, it's a very tiring weekend, really.
Stacy, how was your weekend?
It was great. The main thing I accomplished this weekend was cleaning my windows, a task I've been dreading for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure you've been putting that off for a while.
It's really therapeutic, but it's one of those things you really got to be ready to do it when you're ready to do it. So
do you clean the inside and outside, or was this the outside clean?
all of it.
It was
Yeah,
all
inside, outside. Yeah, but it was windy here too. So I say I got all of it. I didn't get the upstairs outside done. So that's for another day.
Yeah, I get so frustrated with stuff like cleaning the car or cleaning the windows because, you know, the next day it's dusty or it rains or the sprinklers hit it or something and it's not clean anymore. It's like, what's the point in doing it in the first place? And, you know, it's almost like you need to hire window cleaners that just clean it every day.
I hear you. And it rained today, but I don't have
Yeah.
dust, you know, the dust and the rain on my window. So it's one of those things. I'm one of those people too that I love a clean windshield. It just like makes my day. And so
Yeah.
working from home and having to look out these windows whenever
Yeah.
I'm working during the day, it's just bothers me.
Yeah.
We need windshield wipers for the house.
I know.
And I have paw prints all over mine too from these little guys. All right, we're done waiting for Brad. He's gonna catch up when he catches up. So let's just get started with us. So let's start like this. Let's start with Syed. How about you just share a little bit about yourself? You know, what you did in college, where you and I connected, what you've been doing, the different jobs you've had, and also I'd love for you to share with this group a bit about the your entrepreneurship activities as well.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Brandy. So I went to UNT, the University of North Texas, for my undergrad. I did information systems. And after junior year, I was looking for an internship, and Sabre was, you know, a company that I liked because my wife had already interned there as well the year before. So I applied. I got the internship right after my junior year. And the nice thing was I connected very well with my bosses, my coworkers, and we were going to be taking Salesforce Live and taking out Siebel. So it was a big project I got involved in, and they offered me a full-time role. And they were going to be super flexible with me finishing off my senior year as well. So it was really just the best of both worlds. I basically had a job before I had finished college or even started my senior year.
Amazing.
Yeah, so and I did both at the same time. It was a lot of work, but it was extremely fulfilling for me because I got to do both of those at the same time. And when my friends were looking for jobs, I wasn't at the end of senior year. Mm-hmm. And I stayed at Sabre, and that internship is where Brandy and I met. She was actually my intern coach for the intern case competition, and we had probably the hardest topic that we had picked, which was blockchain technology to work on. And some of the other topics were stuff like social media, which was much more graspable, essentially. So we had a lot of fun doing that project. We learned a ton about blockchain technology throughout that, and with Brandy's leadership. And I got really close with some of my intern friends. So stayed at Sabre for a while. Pandemic hit. Was still with Sabre through 2020 and everything, then felt like it was time to move. So I left Sabre, joined Fidelity. Now I'm currently at Fidelity as a senior manager of a Scrum Master, leading a few teams for the modernization of the call center software technology. So that's like the professional career path. On the side, I always felt like there was a better way to kind of essentially cut out the legwork and form meaningful connections with your coworkers specifically. Because when I had joined Sabre, it took me like 6 months to over like a year or so to really connect with my team. And once I did, that's when I became really productive and was able to provide even more value. So me and a couple of other friends, we went and found Parallel, which is what we're working on right now. It's super early stages. Finished out the MVP, still building out the team. Essentially, what we're trying to do is create a positive culture in corporate environments, because I saw Sabre do a lot of cultural initiatives, and a lot of folks either just didn't want to go or didn't want to join or didn't really care to participate in it. But what we thought is that maybe we can take advantage of just human nature for wanting to connect with other folks, and especially with remote and hybrid work on the rise, we could get people to talk more based on things that they already have in common. Because besides just talking about the weather or anything like that, if I know that that person also likes soccer a lot and likes to watch the Premier League in England, then I'll have a lot to talk about with them right off the bat, instead of waiting for 4 months, 3 months to find out about those very foundational commonalities. So that's what we're trying to do with Parallel as well. And that's kind of something on the side.
Yep, that's awesome. Do you guys have any questions for Syed about his background, what he's been doing, or what he's building?
There, I got unmuted.
yeah.
Syed, how far out are you roughly to go to market?
Yeah, so we did finish up the MVP, Jerry. We're
Mhm.
creating a sales team. Right now, we're looking for like the first few customers that we can work closely and see the validity of the product, as well as some of the effects that we just can't theorize unless we get like a lot of users on the platform. So that's the step we're in right now. The product is ready. It's just we're still building out the team and getting companies to use it.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question. Say, is it more for companies or for individuals?
So it's individuals within the company. So essentially, you can only use it with your at sabre.com, at fidelity.com, like your corporate email address. And whenever you use that to register, you only get in your company's hive. So you only connect with people that are in Fidelity, in your first level connections, second level connections, based on like your highest level of interest. Like Brandy loves hiking, I love hiking. We would get connected on that. Or I love FC Barcelona, which is a soccer team, and then I would get connected with someone on that. And it helps you identify friends that get closer to your team at a much faster rate than the usual conversation does right now. And it'll be really effective in a remote and hybrid environment, because I joined Fidelity as a remote employee over the pandemic. And it took a very long time to get to know the team, besides just the surface level conversations.
Interesting. Thanks.
But it's a corporate sale, right? B2B, not
B2B.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Let's flip over to you, Jerry, really quick. Let's have you share with the team your career journey and what's going on in your world.
Wow. Okay. So among other things, I'm working with you, Brandy,
Yes.
to help leaders, to help business leaders optimize the performance of their teams by playing to their strengths. So summarize several decades here. I started out in electrical engineering at Purdue. Don't slot me as a techie. I'm not. Sorry, Syed, I don't mean that as it'd be a bad thing, but I'm not a techie. I love sales, and I wanted to go into sales and sell computers. And I've always had this thing, maybe a flaw, that whatever I was selling throughout my life, I always wanted to know more about it than anybody I was selling against. So got my electrical engineering degree in computer engineering at Purdue, and then went to work for Hewlett Packard. When in the days where HP was HB, like Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, and it was amazing company back then, 1986. And so I went to work for Hewlett Packard, selling their super mini computers to major accounts, so like Eli Lilly and General Electric and the U.S. Navy and stuff like that. After a few years there, I joined a software company associated with HP and was selling high-end, multi-million-dollar manufacturing automation solutions, quality control solutions to companies like Ford and General Motors and actually HP and GE and or things like that. So that, and then from there on, for the most of the time, after a few years there, I was out on my own, started my own businesses, and I've had several small companies, primarily, well, they're all service businesses, primarily software and consulting, and through a lot of the 90s and early 2000s, helped companies implement CRM solutions. Well, it wasn't called CRM back then, it was called sales automation. And it's interesting because companies would contact me about us implementing a CRM solution for them. And I realized they were trying to solve process issues and people issues with software. And so we, over the years, got into doing quite a bit of software or sales process consulting and sales training and coaching and that type of thing. And for the last, I don't know, most of the last 15 or 20 years, I've been doing sales consulting and primarily focusing now on sales coaching. So I'll go in and help business leaders figure out how to get their salespeople to up their game and do coaching with individual salespeople on how they can improve their sales performance. And that's where I am today.
Yeah. I think it's so fascinating that both of you and Syed have some similarities, you know, some differences and similarities all at the same time. Like Syed crossed Salesforce path, which is a, you know, a CRM, which is essentially what you were doing as well. You're both highly entrepreneurial. And Jade, who couldn't join us, let's pull up her profile. She's going to join us another time because she wasn't able to join us today. But I want to show you her profile because she was also in the marketing arena when we were at Sabre. And she, let's see if I can find this girl. And she is now helping her parents run their company, which is called Bard Foundation Repair. So she didn't go, let's say, out on her own as an entrepreneur, but she is a very entrepreneurial spirit and is, you know, helping her parents run their company. And all three of you, you know, have a strong product sense and are really in tune with, you know, either managing the product or marketing the product or creating the product or selling / marketing the product, but it's, you know, very strong product sense. So I just wanted to point some of those things out as we go into looking at the strengths part. Does anyone have questions for Jerry on his background and what he's done?
Jerry, are you based in Colorado or in Texas?
Brad, I'm in Colorado. So, and Brandy and I met because she actually brought my wife in to work at Intrusion in marketing. And then I joined them for a few months in sales before the big layoff. So yeah, I lived most of my life in Denver. And the past 5 or 6 years, I've been living in Woodland Park, which is a little town of 7,500 people. And we're at 8,500 feet. So we're pretty far up here in the mountains, and look out the back window and see Mama Black Bear go through with her 2 cubs about 5 times a week. But only about a 20-minute drive from Colorado Springs. So it's kind of a nice combination.
Do you have any snow?
Not now. They were forecasting it last night, but usually by this time of year, we'll have had several snows that are 3 or 4 inches and one that'll be a foot or 2. But this is kind of a light year so far.
Thanks.
Okay. So as you can see, Jerry and Syed have the 3 strengths that we have been advertising for the last week, which is the strategic, futuristic, and competition pairing. And Jade also has that, the strategic, futuristic, competition. So the first question I'm going to ask, and Jerry, I'll start with you on this one, but the first question I'm going to ask is, how do you feel like your strategic, futuristic competition, as well as your other strengths, have come together to benefit you, or how have you proactively used them to really get the results that you've been able to get throughout your lifetime in the various pursuits that you've had?
Yeah, Brandy, it's so context sensitive because I apply, as I look at it, I apply all of them, but I apply them in different ways depending on the context. So let's say in sales, competition's a big one. right? Because a competitive spirit is and the drive to win is really important.
And you have lots of influence in your top 10. We just don't see that looking at the top 5 only.
Yeah. So that's kind of my wheelhouse. But also, as we started working together, I began to understand the strategic, futuristic, and ideation, because I always had this thing that I could see possibilities that typically weren't obvious to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going, I don't get this. And all of a sudden they go, oh, okay. And it's so clear to me. And my wife has said to me over the years, other people don't do that. I don't understand it. And I guess, that's what people do a lot with their strengths, right? Everybody's got this and they take it for granted. So strategic, futuristic, ideation have been really drivers for me, and competition in starting my own businesses. And the interesting thing is too, I apply those a lot in coaching. And what I've found is that for coaching clients, whether it's CEO of a small company or whether it's a sales manager or salesperson, whoever, those come together to help me see possibilities for how they can get where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I listen a lot to what's important to them and what their challenges are and where they want to go. And the ideas just bubble to the top, and I can clearly lay out a roadmap for them on how to get there. And so
to tie it back to the strengths that you have a little bit, the input is the research function, right? It's the one that you're asking tons of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And the relator, right, is actually caring about the person and wanting to get to know the person.
Yep.
But when you do that, when you do number 5 and 6, which is ask the questions and get to know the person, you just automatically start to have ideas of what their strategy could be, what their products could look like, what their services could look like. And you automatically look at what are winning strategies, winning
Mm-hmm.
products, winning ideas, which enables you to really, come in and go, okay, this is what you should be doing. Don't know if you're going to do it, but this is how you could get there. And
yes.
Yeah. And then with your high communication, you're able to communicate all of that. You think maybe you have a harder time communicating some of this, but think if you didn't have communication, then it would
No, you're right. And the
difficult.
communication is an interesting thing, because I am a one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-three type of person.
Uh-huh.
When you get beyond that, that's uncomfortable for me. I can be sitting down with half a dozen people and having conversations, or we're talking about business at a conference table or something. But my energy is very, very comes into play one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-three, and then it's just really strong, deep connections.
What I see is one-on-one here, and then maybe presentation, right? Presenting to a group of people here,
Mm-hmm.
And then teaching people here.
That one surprised me, and it's popped up a lot in the past 10 years. In fact, I was in a men's group a few years ago for 2 or 3 years. So we all got to know each other very well. And I had it come up several times that I'm a researcher and a teacher. I like to go learn about something and then share that knowledge with others. And I'd never seen it that way. I'm surprised the input's not higher up on the list, because that one actually can become an obsession for me. Mm-hmm. When I've got something that I need to find out or that I'm interested in, I'll go deep on it. It can be something personal, like I want to find out about overlanding so I can go camping in the backcountry with my family, and I'll spend 100 hours over the next 4 months on it. And then I went from knowing nothing about it to, wow, I have a hard time finding places where people know more about it than I do. And I'm not saying that with ego. It's just, it's this thing that has always been part of my life.
Yeah. You become the subject matter expert on.
Yeah.
What questions do you guys have for Jerry when you guys look at his strengths? Strategic, futuristic, ideation, those are all very entrepreneurial strengths. That also means he's going to relate most with other strategists, futurists, ideators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
AKA, people in executive type roles just because they enjoy building businesses. Any questions for him? We can see that he's got lots of set direction, collaboration, creation, innovation, lots of green, lots of orange.
So how does he balance out execution? Because I don't see any execution.
Yeah,
Just a
exactly.
thought.
No, yeah. And I was thinking that. I thought, okay, I need to let other people talk here. But Brad, that's exactly what I was thinking, is that's where I need people to help me. Like in my CRM business that I had, a small company, we had half a dozen people, and we outsourced to a number of people when we needed more project managers or technical people. But the first hire I made was an executive assistant, and she was great for me because I would give her an objective, and there's a wall here. She would either smash through that wall, climb over that wall, or walk around that wall, and she'd come back with a result. And I call those people. Did you ever watch Star Trek: The Next Generation with Captain Picard?
Mm-hmm.
Every time Captain Picard sat down in the chair and said, "Make it so," and I'm like, yeah, I need my make it so people. I got strategy, I've got the ideas, I've got the direction, but I need executors.
And this is why Jerry and I have gotten together to partner together, because he gives me a lot of suggestions around my product and ideas of how to market it and ideas of how we can sell it. And I'm able to go execute a lot on what he's bringing to the table. But he's has the ideas that I'm not even thinking of, or haven't. They just, I just didn't think of things or see things that particular way. So it's been very beneficial, because for those of you who've never seen my strengths, I'm flip-flopped. I've got the execution all on the top, so execution is very easy for me, but I don't necessarily know if I'm going the right way because I don't have the direction setting pieces. That's not so clear to me. But with Jerry, he's like, oh yeah, you should, definitely do this and do it this way, or, think about this. And, he never, just to make this clear to you, you never impose those strategies or ideas on me. They're always more of like recommendations or suggestions that I can choose to take if I think it's the right thing. But
Yeah.
it's the perspective is very much appreciated.
Well, and the thing is too that, like I've had at least a half a dozen CEOs of small companies say almost verbatim,
Yeah.
you see things that I don't see and nobody else in our company sees, and you see them in a different way.
What you see also is what I need to do with the tool to actually be able to sell it and market it too, which is very valuable, because I build the tool in a way that allows me to use it operationally with people, but not necessarily in a way to market or sell it. And that's the piece where I'm like, wow, that's invaluable.
Yeah. And I'll put together just a quick concrete idea of exactly what we're talking about here too. I've got a friend that's an angel investor, and he's introduced me to several CEOs that he's invested with. And one company, it was about between 50 and 100 employees, growing rapidly. And I was strategizing. I was going through sales strategy with the CEO, and and so he was talking about their expansion overseas, and there were a lot of hassles related to it. There were all kinds of trademark issues or intellectual property issues, and market penetration and distribution, all kinds of things like that. And I asked him, what's your market penetration here in the US? And it was less than 5%. And so the seed I planted was, gosh, how about growing more here in the US? It's in your backyard. You've got some momentum here. You got customers that love you. And that the work and energy and money that takes to get started overseas, when you've still got in your backyard this huge potential left. And it's the 40,000 foot view, right? He was so in it that he didn't see that.
Yeah.
And so
Right. And your strengths are more big picture rather
Mhm.
than the detail.
Yeah. And Brad, one other quick thing. In answer to that too, what I'm also doing is finding out what I love to do, right? So I tend to gravitate now more toward coaching than consulting, because coaching, I'm not coming away from the conversation with a big project and huge to-do list. I am guiding them and helping them see things and helping them set strategy and their goals. But they're doing a lot of the execution. I'm really bringing my top strengths to the table, which is the ideas and the vision and the how do we get there. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for hearing that. Yeah.
What'd you say, Brad?
Oh, I just said, thanks for sharing that. That makes
Oh, you
all
bet.
the sense in the world. Yeah.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, let's flip over to Syed. Let's put your top 10 on here. And what I think is really important to point out first, Syed, is that, again, you have similarities to Jerry with, lots of orange and green, but you have the first one was relator. I think, Jerry, yours was like number 7. So this really changes the dynamic of your strengths and what is a priority to you and how you make your decisions. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with it. I've seen, before I even did any of this, I've seen that I got results from actually relating with people and how well I was able to get along with them. And whenever actually one of the big milestones of my career was that conversion from internship to full time before my senior year. And whenever my boss's boss was talking to me about if they have the headcount or not, they said that they wanted me, not because I came in and revolutionized Salesforce or Siebel. We had a whole team working in, right? It's not like I had any experience with any of that before, but it was because how well I was fitting into their team, and that they wanted that for and which is why they extended that offer and made the exceptions that they needed to. Because on that job description, there was a lot of things like have a degree, which I didn't even have yet. So they made a lot of the exceptions to get that. And then that relator came up really well for me going forward in my professional career, because I was able to get promoted in a time when travel was already struggling and nobody was getting promoted. But I did because I was so close with some of my bosses and some of the VPs that we had. So that constantly kept coming up. And with my communication skills, that was also a very big plus, which is why I was able to lead a team well enough at Sabre. And flipping that to parallel, it's funny because whenever over the weekend when I was looking at this, I sent this to my wife and she looked at this, she said that you don't have any execution. Which is exactly what Brad just said about Jerry. And I said, well, that tracks, because when I wanted to start parallel, I kind of, after knowing this information, I kind of figured that I'm going to play to my strengths, that I know what I want to do, but I cannot code as well as my co-founder CTO can. And I cannot design as well as my as Hannah can with design. But I have a vision and I can get people to come on board and follow the same direction, which is why we're also interviewing for 4 to 5 sales positions this week, because I can't really sell all that well either, but I can get a team together and drive them toward the same direction for an idea. And that's what we're trying. That's where my skills have really coming up big, and I'm playing to them, because even if I can't execute, I know I can get people who are going to be really well at doing that, and I have the skills to get them.
Mm-hmm. And you can hear, that maximizer coming through, because maximizers, of course, maximizing the vision, which is the futuristic, maximizing the competition, maximizing, being number one, maximizing your communication, but it's also maximizing people and relationships and coaching, getting people that you see are also experts that you should be surrounding yourself with, recognizing their talents above your own and saying, if I partner with these people, my business is going to be better for it and they're going to be better for it. We get to get them doing what they do best.
Yeah, and one of the easiest things that I tell people whenever I describe what we're trying to do with Parallel is that if you want to improve your sales pipeline, your sales team, you go get Salesforce. If you want to better your corporate culture, you get Parallel. So that's what we're trying to be. That's like the vision we're trying to dive toward. Using that, I can actually, talk to a lot of people and see if they share the same vision, and maybe we drive towards that same direction.
Yeah. What does the group think about this? Because I heard Jerry say earlier that, corporations were trying to solve people problems with systems. And then I hear kind of a similar parallel of what you're saying, which is, here's what you need to use Salesforce for, but if you need, to enable connection among people, then you use Parallel. Should something like Salesforce, that's the big giant process, and it's the process, should it partner with something like Parallel so that it's bringing in both aspects of, streamlining the sales pipeline and processes and all the other stuff it does too, and it's addressing the people connection, or should companies recognize that they need two separate things to address that? Any thoughts on that?
I have. My thought is that the good partners for Parallel would be more in the HR realm, where they've got some synergy there, and those companies would have market penetration and relationships with companies that Parallel needs to reach.
What do you feel?
Salesforce probably wouldn't turn it down because they've got this. They try to do everything, right? I mean, but what?
Well, what are your thoughts on, does HR actually impact the operation?
I'm not an HR person. I don't have a lot of experience in that area.
Okay. Somebody else?
I don't think, in my opinion, HR keeps everybody in compliance and keeps the meetings in order, but they don't impact the operations that I've ever seen. And I've been in the industry over 30 years. So.
Because that's been my experience too, but my experience is limited compared to Brad's.
So is the relationship of Parallels, is that an operational sale then?
Well, that's just what I'm asking.
Who owns culture?
I think Parallel has been focused on HR and culture, but the question I'm asking is that actually going to get the job done? Because when I was at Sabre and I was in global operations, and we had a similar tool. It was similar but different than Syed's tool, but I was the one who drove that tool and that culture through the operation, not HR. So it came from within the operation that I was actually took that out and made it so that our culture in global ops was using a tool that connected us and brought us together in a variety of different ways than just process.
Yeah, to me, what you're describing, sounds more like a tool for leadership, not for HR.
Yeah, whenever we thought about this, so we've actually started meeting with a lot of the folks that are either angel investors or talking to accelerators, and what they're looking at for like the ideal customer profile, like who would be buying this product from the corporation, right? We're coming down to the same people that whoever's driving culture in that corporation, like, will be the one looking at this. Less compliance or anything like that, but more of culture-driven focus. And with Parallel, I mean, we did think about a lot of integrations. I think we're just a tad bit early right now because Salesforce, Workday, they all have like a big marketplace where you can put your application there, and then people that are already running all those Salesforce and Workday platforms, that they can use that. And a huge advantage that we have is we're plug and play. There is no implementation required at all, like there is for some of these massive applications like Salesforce and Workday. It's as easy as getting signed up and then just sending one email, and then people can start logging in to on the website. So it's fully SaaS, of course, but there's no implementation required. And the sales part is our weakest right now, weakest link, which is exactly why we're going through onboarding some of the sales folks or sales chiefs.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if you could coin a new term called people operation. As far as
What'd you call it?
People operations or culture operations, because I mean, I'm running into this with another group of people that I'm working with, a company where the people and culture is under HR, and somebody was hired in the operations training and development, but in their job description was to impact the culture, which just tells you that the job isn't getting done from the HR people culture group. So the operation went ahead and hired somebody to do their training, development, and culture. And so it just makes me wonder if there is this area called, culture operations that hasn't been developed yet in operations, where you are taking tools to impact the culture, like Strengthology and like Parallel, where we're trying to get in with the people on the ground level that are doing the work to have that impact on them, so that the culture is actually impacted. Janet, you have a question?
I do. And it may be along what you're saying, but it's like, I've always heard the culture starts at the top, but is that not necessarily true?
I think there's two. I think you've got the decisions of the leadership really impact the company. For example, Point B just got a new leader that made some very interesting decisions that the Point B people are not happy with, because they had a different culture before he came along. So I think that's one, right? Of what are the decisions and what are the requirements of that top leadership crew, because that does impact what decisions are actually made and who gets promoted for making what decisions. So that's part of the culture. But there is the second part that you're asking about, which is if we're in a company, we're part of that culture. So what our behavior is what the culture is. It's both.
So I've personally seen like some teams have very good culture, even if the corporate culture isn't really good, right? Back at Sabre, leader. Yeah, back at Sabre, my team of people, we had a great culture. I mean, we were all very close. But if you looked at Sabre as a whole from the outside, they hired someone called Mark. I think you remember him, Brandy. He was the culture coach that came in, I think in like late 2018, early 2019. And he made some changes, but we really didn't see any big beneficials come out of it, at least.
And let me intervene there, because they had brought in another woman 1 year before that, Missy. Don't know if you ever met her.
I never met her.
She only got like a year to make an impact. And after a year of not in people's eyes, not making a big enough impact, they let her go. But she was actually doing some really good stuff in there. So I don't know what happened and she's actually out on her own and runs a consulting firm. She's very highly trained in changing cultures at organizations. So I was so disappointed when they let her go. She was different, and I think it was hard for the people that were there to accept the difference, her uniqueness. But she was actually having a huge impact, or at least on her way to. She was setting up the right framework to be able to have a huge impact. But yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to toss that in there, because then they hired this other guy and we didn't see much from him.
Yeah. And to Janet's thing, where what we're trying to do with the Parallel is that if the leaders make the decision that they're gonna bring this into their corporate side, right, that's the only thing that they have to do right now, and that from the bottom up there are people that are connecting more because I personally found that after I made some close friends at Fidelity, Fidelity actually became more enjoyable for me. But I had to wait, I think, 8 months to get to that point. I mean, why should I wait for 8 months? Wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to do that? And if I was able to find people that are like-minded or shared similarities with me from the start.
And it says here that, you know, you relish deep, close relationships and that you do feel more connected at work. And I want to point out that this relator strength, 30% of the population has this strength. So you can assume that you're hitting 30% of your organization by empowering close one-on-one relationships between people. It's a pretty powerful statistic.
So and this may be a completely different session for brainstorming purposes. So for Syed, just a quick thought for y'all. That's, in fairness, that's a very soft skill improvement in an organization. If you can't figure out how to measure it, it's going to go to the wayside.
Yep, that's the next big feature that we're talking about. What measurements can we provide to the people that are buying this, and how do we show like the improvements that are happening?
I'm glad everybody feels good, but how we make them up.
And lucky
Exactly.
he has competition, which is all about those metrics.
And one of the reasons why we are also like selling this and when talking to the accelerators is that the level of whenever like if you imagine a new person join a company, it takes a little bit of time to really know the team and really ask like those difficult questions and then get really productive as you are like 6 months later. But if you were to get into the team and you immediately bond with the team within like the first week, you're going to become a bit more productive immediately, because now you're going to be able to ask those hard questions because you're in a more comfortable, welcoming environment, because you've already laughed about similar stuff or talked about similar stuff with your team. And one of the other reasons was to lower the attrition rates. People usually stay, and these are some Gallup-backed researches, that people usually stay at a job a longer time whenever they have closer friends at that place. So battling attrition, increasing productivity, some of those are the huge benefits.
Can I share on that statement where you were talking about, people stay longer if they, that's one of the things. I totally agree with that. Not that my input, should be in the Wall Street Journal, but what I am saying is that, like, I worked for Sprint several years back, and when telecom was strong, and everybody seemed to get along, and so we didn't have a high, like you said, a turnover rate. But I haven't experienced an environment like that since I left there, where we would like go to dinners. I'd go to, we'd go to movies, have parties on the weekends. It was just like a big family.
Yeah, and that goes really far if you can provide like a platform where that can be kind of created, because we had that back at Sabre. And that was due to like 1 or 2 very strong relators from the leadership side that was in that department. Exactly what you said, like parties on the weekends. We have finished up major deployments and then went to get dinner and stuff. So those things go really far, and actually what kept in the company a lot longer as well.
Well, and we also, one experience I had was there was an implementation, and it was before Thanksgiving. It was the weekend before Thanksgiving. And if this implementation didn't go in successfully, they were going to lose a lot of money. And I'm not saying I'm like, the Bill Gates of Sprint at that time, by no means, because I was new to the team and software testing. So I just jumped in, me and the other new people, to help out. All to say, my point is, the AVP hand wrote everybody a thank you note for jumping in, working together. It successfully went in, and he mailed it to our home address. He didn't send it through the company.
Yeah, things like that go really far.
That's huge. We had that kind of culture at Hewlett-Packard too back in the 80s. They called it the HP way, and it just, get-togethers and dinners and things that amazed me. After I'd been with the company for 3 months, they flew me out to Palo Alto for training at Palo Alto, Cupertino, and Mountain View. I don't know, 3 divisions. And on one of the nights they were having get-togethers, they had a cocktail party, and there were about 15 of us in a room. And Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard walk in, and they spend like 10 minutes with each one of us, sipping wine and talking about the company. And that was a pretty big company by then. And for the 2 founders of the company to take time for a handful of new employees and spend time with them, it just blew me away.
So I think we can all agree that the traditional corporate culture and ways have gotten away from things that actually help from a relationship perspective. A lot of the legal stuff that's put in place really impinges that as well. And I think there's room. I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement to go back the other direction, but I think it's up to us smart people to figure out how to help leadership value that when they are scrutinized as public companies by shareholders and investors and the stock market. I think that's one of the hardest things, is that you do not get measured and graded on how good the relationships are in the company. And so there's just a real neglect of that, even though it can help those numbers and produce those results. And I think that's why we're all on this call, because we care about trying to find ways to help improve this. And we all know that it's all going to fall apart if we don't. I mean, we got to keep people connected, and it made even harder in this pandemic digital type environment that has been created over the last couple of years. So shall we look at the comparison view here, look at maybe some of the bottom things as well as the differences in their top ones and the similarities? What all do we?
That's what I was just going to ask. What do they look like at the bottom?
Let's go. Yeah, let's scroll down here and just take a look. So deliberative is low for both of them, which is that slow decision-making process. Neither one of them are slow decision makers. They're not necessarily wanting to, get in the weeds like an engineer to solve those big complex problems that restorative would love to do. What else do we see?
I'm surprised to see.
He's low.
Wait a minute, who's on the right? Is that?
So Jerry, you're on the left.
Yeah, so
on the right.
I'm surprised to see that 33 is empathy for him and relators number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just the way that he comes at relationships.
Okay.
He is trying to relate, and he's doing that a little bit more through logic as well, because he's organized with that relator, and it relates. It says, oh, you play tennis, so and so. So it relates those 2 things together, and then it says, oh, and I play tennis too. So it's kind of like a relational type strength, but then it also cares deeply about people and relationships. But for example, if someone is sitting in front of Syed crying their eyes out about something, he may feel it if he's been through it, if he can relate. But if he doesn't know why this person is crying and can't relate, it's very difficult to feel sad the way they're feeling. Now, he wants to help and he feels bad that they feel bad, but he's not crying. Where someone really high in empathy is going to feel the feeling of what someone's feeling, no matter what, whether they can relate or not.
Okay.
It's funny you say that, Jerry. I thought empathy would be higher for me too, but that caught me off guard as well.
Lots of incredible things we see in these.
And usually what you can do when you find something low is do the comparison. Say, well, what would somebody look like if they had really high empathy? I mean, can you identify that? Can you think of somebody who is an empath, who is very feeling oriented, who makes emotional decisions, who, all they care about is feelings. That's the primary objective to them. If you can think of that person, then you can go, oh, okay, I'm not like that.
Do these come through differently? If when I take the survey and I'm kind of like in a business mindset, do they come through differently than if I were thinking personally? Because I think empathy would be like at the very top. If so, I really am tuned into people's feelings and can almost really read them. And I'm wondering if that's personal versus a business environment.
Yeah, I mean, some people will act differently at work than they do at home, versus another environment. They'll be adaptive. The question is, should they have to? And if they shouldn't have to, if they're allowed to be who they are at work and at home, are they in the right company or the right environment or the right area? And then the other question that we have to ask is, or are you just turning some of your other strengths on? So you are yourself, you're just not leaning into certain things about yourself at that time. Like we flex that too. Like in some areas I'm very organized, and in other areas I wouldn't even try to be organized, because I wouldn't impose it, because I know it just wouldn't be accepted.
I think that's it. Because as you said that, I thought, yeah, when I get into a business environment, I think it's the competitive that does that, because I'm like, okay, game on.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
empathy may just kind of slide down to the bottom a little bit farther, where I'm at home, I'm relaxed. I can really tune into what my son's doing or feeling, or my wife's feeling really deeply.
And then what else you can ask yourself is, for example, do I want to win or do I want to learn? Do I want to win or do I want to learn? If you keep going, I really want to win, I want to learn, but I really want to win, then you go, yeah, it should be higher. It should be higher on that hierarchy.
Wait a minute, empathy or learner?
I'm sorry, I was just comparing two that
okay, to the, yeah,
really
okay,
tap into,
okay.
Because I think the way that empathy is defined as a whole is not aligned with what Gallup produced, right? Because empathy as a whole is, do you care about people's feelings? Well,
yeah,
of course we care about people's feelings, but if you are not able, it's not even the word able. If you do not naturally, instinctively, intuitively feel what someone else is feeling, you may have lower empathy, even though you care. And I have been told, Brandy, I know you care, but and that's it, right? It's the relator up top and the empathy down low. It's like,
yep.
I don't know what to say, or how to help someone feel better, right? In a particular situation, I can use my consistency strength, and I can just kind of level out the playing field for them and say, this is probably why things are going on, and calm them down. But I don't necessarily feel what they're feeling in that moment. But my relator still allows me to care deeply about what's going on with them.
I love the permission this gives us to feel okay about what's in the bottom.
Yeah. And to outsource it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I used to practice the opposite of that, and one of my first exposures to this realm is years ago. I listened to Marcus Buckingham's "Go Put Your Strengths to Work," and when I was in my 20s, I used to look at my D's and F's and try to turn them into A's and B's. Like, I was terrified of public speaking, and I was afraid of flying, and I got sick even on big airplanes. So I got a job flying around the country 3 times a week giving presentations. I got over all 3 of those. Like, okay, those are taken care of. And then I listened to Marcus Buckingham, and like, okay, focus on your A's and B's and outsource or automate or whatever to compensate for the lower ones. And then I also have areas where I'll put the bumpers up on the bowling alley. and try to protect.
How long did it take you to overcome public speaking and flying?
About a year.
Mm-hmm.
About a year. I was, and I don't like it anymore. I love flying, love travel, but I don't like public speaking.
Yeah.
But if I get back into the swing, I'm okay. But
Yeah.
and it wasn't big audiences. It was okay. I'm walking into Coca-Cola and going to go through their plant and help put together strategy. And then I've got 5 directors and a couple of VPs, maybe a room of 12 people. I'm standing at the head of the board room table and I'm making a presentation
Mhm.
on what we need to do. So it wasn't an audience of 1,000, but before that, I would really fall apart presenting to 4 or 5 people standing up in front of them. And
Right.
so I took the Dale Carnegie course and I joined Toastmasters, and I got that job flying all over the country and making presentations. But it was less than a year probably before I got comfortable with it. After flying 3 times a week, I was okay flying within a month,
Mm-hmm.
and doing those presentations, I was comfortable within maybe 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Fascinating. Yeah.
And
Okay.
then I heard Marcus Buckingham, it was a revelation to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, you're
Yeah,
kidding me.
it's a different way of thinking than we've been taught.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
And it's just a different way of thinking also than when you have to go through school and you have to pull grades in a variety of subjects, even though
Mhm.
you don't like them. Like, I mean, I would say I'm a pretty proactive, high achieving person, and I could barely pull a C in history. It's
Mhm.
just awful for me. And I worked really hard at it, and I still could only pull the C, which, you look at now and you go, that was the most ridiculous thing that I've ever put myself through for years and years and years and years, because I didn't retain a lick of it. Like, what good did that do me? None, So
Yeah.
the school system really limits us in this way of thinking. Yeah.
Mhm.
What other questions, thoughts, anything else you guys would like to bring up or talk about? We are at the hour. But I think we can go a couple more minutes if you guys have anything else you'd like to bring up.
The only other question I've noticed is consistency was down the chart on both of them.
Yeah.
How does that affect what their upper level strengths are?
Do either of you feel like you are consistent people? Let's let Syed have a shot, a go at this one.
Not as consistent as I would like to be. So yeah.
And do you feel like you lack balance in your life, or do you feel like you have a pretty good handle on balance?
I think I have an okay handle on balance, and I think that's only possible because I work from home. It wouldn't be if I didn't. But the consistency will, I mean, even small stuff like just daily working out or eating right, will go to like some family event or some work thing, and then that will just get tossed out for that night. So I think I like consistency like that.
And do you feel like you need consistency in your life, or do you feel like it's neither here nor there?
I think right now I don't think it's neither here or there, but it would be something that I would strive towards as I build the team out more for Parallel and get some stuff off my plate.
Well, and I mean, honestly, like, you could bring someone in that drives some consistencies or handles execution consistently, the things that are the monotonous day to day thing. The consistency people love doing that, and they love scaling systems in order to be able to handle those types of things in a very efficient way. So it's, again, probably something to outsource, or to have a coach continuously remind you, or to have somebody that helps you be accountable to the things you want to be consistent at. But I think, again, since it's so low, it's going to be hard for you to drive it yourself, because you've got other things you're driving, right? Strategies, ideas.
Yeah, I kind of let the consistency thing go because in the last 2 years, I started parallel, joined Fidelity, got married, finished building a house.
Yeah.
So with all these things, I kind of figured that this was going to be a little bit hectic.
Yeah. Where Brad, for me, having consistency in my top 5, it's a need for me. I have to have consistency. The instant I feel an imbalance, I bring it back into balance again.
Oh, yeah. I was just curious how it affected Jerry and Syed.
Yeah. Jerry, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, for me, what I find is I'll have consistency in the things that are important to me. Like there was a point in my life when my son was 2 years old and I was 48 and I went, wait a minute. I did the math and I was absolutely compelled to get in shape and get healthy. And I scheduled it and I did it like clockwork. It's in the schedule. Today I'm running 5 miles and this time I'm doing the strength training, and I would lay out the week in advance on Sunday and I go, okay, it's going to be kind of cold Wednesday. I think I'll run on Thursday when it's a little warmer, and I'd lay the week out and it's there and I forget about it. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is kind of putting the bumpers up in the bowling alley. I've found when something's important to me, then I will put the things in place, set reminders, set an alarm, whatever, to be consistent in that. And I don't know if this is consistency, but I'm not a detail-oriented person at all. And for about 10 years, I was in real estate in Denver, selling real estate. And the feedback I got from my customers all the time was, you're so detail-oriented. And I bit my tongue because I wanted to look at them and go, really? I'm not. And that's because
I think the one strength that is more detail-oriented that you have is input.
Input. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe they were just really
seeing that
one. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if it's important to me, I'll put some things in place to make sure I do it, or I'll have somebody like my executive assistant that I had, at that one point that does those things. And then there's the funny thing is there are some things that are important to me personally for consistency. And I have routines and rituals in the morning that I do almost every day like clockwork. And I scratch my head and I go, that doesn't fit, but the things that give me joy. So they happen consistently.
Yeah, and they obviously impact the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Syed, for sharing some of your insides with us today. We really, really appreciate it. And I think that this call was extremely beneficial to everyone who joined. And I will post it up to YouTube if you guys are both okay with me posting the recording up to YouTube. And next week, we're going to be meeting with Bob Barker and Vin for the connection and learner strengths. All
awesome.
right.
Thanks all. Great meeting you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a wonderful week, everyone.
You too. Thanks, Brandy.
Bye.
Welcome. Thank you.